The Zarkax Empire had conquered 17 civilizations across 3 galactic arms. Their success was always assured. Their quantum computers could predict with perfect accuracy how any species would develop, react, and ultimately fall. But they never encountered anything like humans. Admiral Vexthor stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Destiny's Herald, his iridescent scales reflecting the pale blue light of Earth on the main viewport. His secondary brain cluster processed the preliminary scans while his primary consciousness considered the peculiar readings before him. Impossible. He chittered to his science officer, Rental. Run the analyses again. I have, Admiral. 15 times. Rental's tentacles wavered in agitation as she manipulated the holographic displays. These humans, they're simultaneously using primitive combustion engines and experimenting with quantum tunneling. They're fighting wars with chemical explosives while exploring unified field theory. It defies all known models of technological progression. The Admiral's facial plates shifted in what passed for a frown among his species. In 12,000 years of spacefaring history, the Empire had never encountered a species that didn't follow the universal development path. Every civilization discovered fire, then agriculture, then industrial processes, then atomic theory, each step following the last in perfect, predictable sequence. But these humans, they were chaos incarnate. Their military capabilities, he asked, though he already suspected the answer would confound him. Scattered across 7 centuries of development, Admiral. Some still use projectile weapons while others have crude energy shields. They have no standardization, no unified command structure. And yet, Rental paused, her chromatophores pulsing with uncertainty. Continue. And yet they're somehow more effective because of it. Our simulations can't predict their tactics because they don't follow any rational strategic doctrine. They improvise, adapt, combine obsolete and advanced technologies in ways that shouldn't work, but do. Admiral Vexthor had conquered worlds that could fold space. He had brought species that could manipulate gravity to their knees. But something about these humans made his primary heart flutter with an unfamiliar sensation. Doubt. Still, orders were orders. The Empire had designated Earth as the next acquisition, and its resistance metrics indicated it would fall within standard parameters. The humans' chaotic development would make no difference against the Empire's overwhelming technological superiority. Begin the standard subjugation protocol, he commanded. Deploy the autonomous peacekeepers. The first wave of robotic enforcers descended through Earth's atmosphere, their quantum shields easily deflecting the primitive missiles and energy weapons humanity launched in response. They landed in major population centers across the globe, broadcasting the Empire's standard surrender demands in all local languages. The humans' response was anything but standard. Within hours, amateur engineers in what the Empire considered a backwater region, called Finland, had captured a damaged peacekeeper and reversed-engineered its shield harmonics. In South Africa, a teenage girl discovered that the robot's quantum AI could be overwhelmed by generating paradoxical mathematical sequences, something she derived from recreational physics problems she solved for fun. Admiral. Rental's voice carried an edge of panic. The humans, they're sharing information globally through their primitive digital network. They're not just fighting the peacekeepers, they're learning from them, adapting. Every failed resistance attempt teaches them something new about our technology. Vexthor watched in growing disbelief as humans combined their crude electromagnetic weapons with precisely calculated frequencies to disrupt his peacekeepers' quantum cores. They turned their primitive combustion engines into makeshift EMP devices that played havoc with Imperial electronics. Most disturbing of all, they showed no fear of failure. Each defeat seemed to spark dozens of new, increasingly effective strategies. Impossible. He chittered again, but with less conviction. No species can adapt this quickly. The universal development path. Sir, his tactical officer interrupted, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from multiple points on the planet's surface. They appear to be. Sir, They're attempting to replicate our quantum shield technology using their primitive particle accelerators and something they call gaming console processors. The Admiral's scales shifted from their confident blue to a troubled gray. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were innovating at a pace that defied comprehension. They took imperial technology that had developed over millennia and reimagined it through their chaotic lens, creating hybrid systems that no sane engineer would conceive. "Send in the second wave," he ordered. Full military response. But even as he gave the command, a new sensation crept through his secondary brain cluster, one that no Zarkax had felt in 10,000 years of imperial expansion. Fear. The humans weren't following the rules. They weren't developing technology in the right sequence. They weren't responding to defeat with submission, but with furious creativity. And somehow, their chaotic, impossible methods were working. As the second wave of Imperial forces descended toward Earth, Admiral Vexthor realized too late that the Empire had made a catastrophic mistake. They had based their entire conquest strategy on the assumption that all intelligent life followed the same predictable path of development. The humans were about to teach them just how wrong they were. The Empire's second wave struck Earth with overwhelming force, or at least what should have been overwhelming. Admiral Vexthor watched in growing confusion as his perfectly orchestrated assault dissolved into chaos. Humanity had spent the precious hours since first contact doing what they did best: adapting, sharing, and breaking all the rules of conventional warfare. "Sir, the humans in the region designated Silicon Valley have infected our quantum networks with something they call blockchain malware," Rental reported, her tentacles twisting in distress. "It's not even proper quantum code. It's primitive binary algorithms mutated through something they call machine learning. Our systems can't purge it because they can't predict its behavior." The tactical displays told a story that defied imperial military doctrine. In Japan, a consortium of gaming companies had reprogrammed their neural interface entertainment devices to hijack the imperial forces' command protocols. Brazilian engineers had somehow married their deep-sea oil drilling technology with salvaged alien power cores to create crude but effective electromagnetic pulse weapons. Most disturbing of all, humans worldwide were sharing their innovations freely through their global information network. Every successful tactic was immediately analyzed, improved upon, and redeployed with local variations. They showed no concern for patents, proprietary rights, or technological hierarchies, concepts that were fundamental to imperial society. "These readings can't be accurate," the Admiral's weapons officer insisted. "The humans in this India region are using repurposed satellite dishes and modified cell phone towers to create a planetary defense grid. The technology is centuries behind ours. It shouldn't be able to detect our stealth systems, let alone interfere with them." But it was working. Somehow, the humans' crude hybrid of technologies was creating interference patterns that played havoc with imperial targeting systems. Their solutions weren't elegant. They were barely comprehensible to imperial science, but they were undeniably effective. "Sir," Rental's voice carried an edge of awe. "You need to see this. The humans they call hackers, they're not just attacking our systems. They're improving them. They're finding efficiency protocols our engineers never considered because they weren't part of the standard development sequence." The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep purple of confusion as he reviewed the data. A teenager in Kenya had discovered that imperial quantum shields could be overclocked by introducing controlled chaos into their harmonics, something that violated every principle of imperial engineering, but somehow increased their effectiveness by 47%. A garage inventor in New Zealand had combined primitive radio technology with quantum principles to create a communication system that was faster than imperial quantum entanglement networks, simply because she didn't know it was supposed to be impossible. "How do they think like this?" Vexthor demanded. "There's no logic to their methods, no proper sequence. They're combining technologies that should be centuries apart." "That appears to be their advantage, sir," Rental replied. "They don't know what they're not supposed to be able to do." The battle for Earth's major cities was turning into a nightmare of asymmetric warfare. Humans weren't just fighting back. They were innovating at a pace that made Imperial tactical computers crash, trying to predict their next move. In Russia, babushkas were using modified microwave ovens to disrupt Imperial force fields. Australian Aboriginal trackers were teaching resistance fighters how to detect Imperial stealth units through minute disturbances in the natural environment. A method that shouldn't have worked but did. Most shocking of all, humans were adapting Imperial technology faster than the Empire's own engineers could respond. They didn't bother learning the underlying theories or following proper development protocols. They simply tried things until something worked, then immediately shared their discoveries globally. Admiral, the tactical officer's voice was tight with strain. We're detecting a new type of energy signature from multiple points around the planet. The humans appear to be. Sir, they're combining their primitive nuclear fusion experiments with salvaged Imperial tech. Energy readings are exceeding our predictive scales. Vexthor felt his primary heart skip a beat. The humans weren't just resisting. They were on the verge of a technological leap that had taken the Empire centuries to achieve. And they were doing it with duct tape, repurposed consumer electronics, and a complete disregard for the proper order of scientific development. Sir, Rental's chromatophores pulsed with urgent patterns. The humans are broadcasting a message. It's being transmitted on all frequencies, including some we didn't know could be used for communication. The Admiral turned his attention to the main screen, where a human face appeared. Behind the speaker, he could see teams of humans working on impossible hybrid technologies, their primitive tools alongside salvaged Imperial tech. To the Zarkax Empire, the human began, a smile playing at the corners of their mouth. Thank you for the technology demonstration. We've made some improvements. Would you like to see them? As if on cue, thousands of energy signatures bloomed across Earth's surface. The Empire's invincible armada was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their absolute refusal to accept impossible as an answer. Admiral Vexthor's command center erupted in cascading alarms as humanity's improvements to Imperial technology manifested across the globe. His tactical officers' scales shifted through patterns of confusion and disbelief as their sensor arrays struggled to process what they were seeing. This defies all known laws of technological progression, Rental whispered, her tentacles coiling tightly as she analyzed the data streams. They've taken our quantum shield technology, and they've somehow merged it with their primitive nuclear fusion experiments and something they call video game physics engines to create localized space-time distortion fields. The Admiral watched in stunned silence as human resistance fighters deployed their hybrid weapons. In what the humans called MIT, scientists had created devices that combined Imperial quantum processors with ordinary laptop computers, producing computational power that exceeded the Empire's best supercomputers. They hadn't bothered learning the underlying quantum principles. They simply treated them as very fast processing units and wrote code that shouldn't have worked, but did. Sir, the humans in the region called CERN have done something unprecedented, the science officer reported, his scales blanching to pure white. They've modified their primitive particle accelerator with salvaged Imperial tech. They're not just breaking the laws of physics, they're rewriting them. The displays showed human scientists literally redefining the rules of quantum mechanics. They approached problems with no understanding of why they shouldn't be solvable, and in doing so, found solutions that the Empire's brightest minds had never conceived. How are they advancing so quickly? Vexthor demanded, his primary heart racing as he watched centuries of Imperial technological superiority being undone in days. They're not following any of the established learning sequences. That appears to be their advantage, Admiral, Rental replied, her chromatophores pulsing with reluctant admiration. They don't learn linearly. Each human approaches problems differently, tries solutions that should be impossible, and somehow succeeds. Then they immediately share their discoveries with others who find even more impossible ways to improve them. In South Korea, gamers had reprogrammed Imperial battle simulators using principles from something they called Nemno raid mechanics, creating combat strategies that were so chaotic and unpredictable that Imperial AI couldn't counter them. A group of children in Brazil had turned their gaming consoles into quantum encryption crackers, simply because nobody had told them it couldn't be done. "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted, "we're detecting widespread modifications to our quantum communication networks. The humans have created something they're calling quantum social media. They're using our own command channels to share tactical information and technological innovations in real time." The tactical displays showed the impossible becoming reality across the planet. Humans weren't just reverse engineering Imperial technology. They were reimagining it entirely. They combined technologies that should have been centuries apart in development, created hybrid systems that violated every principle of proper engineering, and somehow made them work better than the originals. "Sir, you need to see this." Rental's voice carried an edge of fear. "The humans in a place called Silicon Valley have developed what they're calling quantum apps. They're treating our most advanced military systems like smartphone software. They're creating user interfaces and making our technology accessible to children." The Admiral's scales shifted to the deep purple of existential dread as he realized the full implications. The Empire had spent millennia carefully controlling the development and distribution of advanced technology. Humans were not only democratizing it, they were gamifying it. "They're treating our weapons systems like toys," the tactical officer reported in disbelief. "And somehow, that's making them more effective." A human child just reprogrammed an Imperial destroyer's defense grid using something called Minecraft redstone logic. The Empire's carefully structured understanding of technological progress was crumbling. Humans didn't care about proper development sequences or established scientific principles. They tried the impossible, and when it worked, they immediately found 3 ways to make it better. "Admiral," Rental's tentacles trembled as she delivered her report, "the humans have begun mass-producing hybrid technologies. They're using their primitive assembly lines combined with Imperial matter replicators. The efficiency. Sir, they're manufacturing quantum processors in repurposed auto plants. They've reduced our production costs by 90% using methods that completely ignore standard protocols." Vexthor watched as humanity's chaotic innovation transformed their primitive industrial base into something that transcended Imperial technology. They weren't just fighting back. They were revolutionizing warfare itself, treating the laws of physics less like immutable rules and more like polite suggestions. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted again, another global broadcast from the humans. The main screen flickered to life, showing a diverse group of humans standing in what appeared to be a converted warehouse. Behind them, children played with devices that made the Admiral's scales crawl. Imperial quantum technology redesigned with colorful interfaces and intuitive controls. "Thank you again for the inspiration." The human spokesperson smiled. "We've made a few more upgrades. Would you like to see what happens when we stop treating your technology as sacred and start treating it as a starting point?" As the transmission ended, thousands of new energy signatures appeared on the tactical displays. The Empire was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to copy technology. It was their ability to reimagine it entirely. Admiral Vexthor's command center had become a nexus of chaos as humanity launched their counteroffensive. The elegant holographic displays that once showed perfect battle formations now flickered with incomprehensible tactical patterns as humans deployed their hybrid technologies across the globe. "Sir, they're not just attacking our forces, they're rewriting the rules of engagement," the tactical officer reported, his scales cycling through patterns of confusion. "They've combined our quantum targeting systems with something they call battle royale game mechanics. Our predictive algorithms can't anticipate their movements because they're intentionally randomizing their own strategies. The humans had turned their greatest weakness, their chaos, into an overwhelming advantage. Rather than adopting imperial military doctrine, they had forced the Empire to fight on their terms, in ways that no sane military strategist would consider. The Asian coalition is deploying what they call quantum-enhanced drone swarms, Rental announced, her tentacles twisting in disbelief. They're using primitive remote-controlled devices upgraded with our technology, but they're controlling them through. Sir, they're using modified video game controllers. The neural interface is so intuitive that children are outmaneuvering our best pilots. Across the planet, humanity's counterattack unfolded like a fever dream of impossible tactics. African engineers had transformed their solar farms into quantum energy collectors, creating power systems that defied imperial physics. European scientists had combined imperial force field technology with their primitive weather control experiments, turning the atmosphere itself into a weapon. Admiral, the science officer's voice cracked, the humans in North America have done something unprecedented. They've merged their primitive internet infrastructure with our quantum networks to create some kind of hybrid consciousness. They're calling it quantum social intelligence. It's allowing them to coordinate globally with zero latency. The tactical displays showed the results of this impossible fusion. Human resistance cells worldwide were acting with perfect synchronization, sharing innovations and adapting strategies in real time. They had turned their fragmented, chaotic nature into a strength, creating a form of unified action that maintained their unpredictability while maximizing their effectiveness. Sir, the South American coalition has deployed their quantum-enhanced jungle warfare systems, reported the ground forces commander. They've somehow merged our stealth technology with their understanding of local ecosystems. Our troops can't distinguish between natural life forms and human guerrilla fighters anymore. But it was the next development that truly demonstrated humanity's terrifying potential. The screens showed new energy signatures emerging from what had once been ordinary human research facilities. Admiral, Rental's chromatophores pulsed with terror. They've developed something they're calling quantum reality hacking. They're not just using our technology. They're actively rewriting the underlying principles of how it works. They're treating the laws of physics like open source code. Vexthor watched in horror as human hackers literally reprogrammed the behavior of quantum particles. They approached the fundamental laws of the universe not as immutable constants, but as systems to be optimized and improved. Their solutions violated every principle of imperial science, yet they worked with devastating effectiveness. Sir, multiple human strike teams are deploying what they call impossible weapons, the tactical officer reported. They're using principles that our scientists deem theoretically unusable. They've weaponized quantum paradoxes, created causality loops, and, sir, they're using our own temporal stabilizers to create localized time dilation effects. The Empire's fleets found themselves facing an enemy that fought like no other. Humans didn't just adapt to imperial technology. They'd reinvented it, combined it with their primitive tools in ways that should never have worked, and created entirely new forms of warfare. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. The humans have broadcast their terms. They're not demanding our surrender. They're offering to teach us. The main screen showed a global council of human leaders, scientists, and even children, all working together with hybrid technologies that made the Admiral's scales itch with their impossible efficiency. Your empire has shown us what's possible, their spokesperson declared. Now let us show you what's impossible. We're willing to share everything we've learned, all our improvements, all our innovations. The only question is, are you ready to learn from chaos? As Vexthor watched his invincible armada being systematically dismantled by human innovation, he realized that the Empire hadn't just underestimated humanity's resistance. They had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of progress itself. The humans hadn't just beaten their technology. They had transcended it. And now they were offering to share their impossible knowledge with the galaxy. The Imperial High Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Vexthor completed his report. The vast quantum projection space showed representatives from across the Empire, scientists, military leaders, and politicians, all displaying the same pale shade of disbelief in their scales. "You mean to tell us," the High Chancellor's voice resonated through the chamber, "that not only did the humans defeat our forces, but they've completely revolutionized our understanding of technological development?" "They'd done more than that, Chancellor." Rental stepped forward, her tentacles steady as she projected the latest data. "They've proven that our entire approach to scientific advancement was unnecessarily limited." The displays showed human innovation spreading across the galaxy like a cascade of light. Their hybrid technologies, their chaotic methodologies, their absolute refusal to accept traditional limitations, it was transforming everything the Empire had built over millennia. "Look at what they've achieved in just months," she continued. "Their quantum social networks have already connected a dozen worlds. Their simplified interfaces for our technology have made advanced systems accessible to species we once considered too primitive for contact. They're not just advancing, they're dragging the entire galaxy forward with them." The Council watched in amazement as humans taught other species their methodology of controlled chaos. Worlds that had spent centuries carefully following the universal development path were now leapfrogging ahead, combining technologies in ways that the Empire had never imagined possible. "Most remarkably," Rental added, "they're not hoarding their discoveries. Every innovation, every impossible breakthrough is shared freely across their networks. They've turned technological development into a collaborative game that anyone can play." The data streams showed the impact. Imperial manufacturing worlds were being transformed by human efficiency techniques. Military academies were struggling to adapt to warfare that didn't follow logical patterns. Even the Empire's most advanced research facilities were being revolutionized by what humans called thinking outside the box. "But how can we maintain order?" demanded the Minister of Progress. "Their methods violate every principle of controlled development." "The chaos is precisely what we needed," Vexthor interrupted, his scales shifting to the deep blue of certainty. "We've spent millennia believing that progress must follow a predetermined path. The humans have proven that innovation thrives on disorder, on challenging assumptions, on asking why not instead of accepting impossible." The displays showed human children teaching Imperial scientists how to approach problems with fresh eyes. Young humans working alongside ancient alien races, showing them how to combine technologies in ways that defied conventional wisdom but produced extraordinary results. "They call it collaborative chaos," Rental explained. "Every species brings its own perspective, its own technologies, its own impossible ideas. The humans have created a framework where all these chaotic elements combine to drive innovation faster than any controlled system ever could." The council chamber erupted in debate, but it was already too late to resist the change. Across the galaxy, species that had once looked to the Empire for guidance were now eagerly embracing humanity's approach to progress. "We have a choice," Admiral Vexthor addressed the council. "We can resist this transformation and become obsolete, or we can learn from the humans and help guide this new age of development. They're not just offering us their technology, they're offering us a new way of thinking." The final displays showed the latest human innovation, a galaxy-wide platform they called the Universal Innovation Network. It was chaos given form, a system where species could share ideas, combine technologies, and challenge assumptions freely. The Empire's careful categorization of civilizations by technological level had been replaced by a vibrant ecosystem of collaborative development. "The humans have a saying," Rental concluded. "They claim that the most beautiful garden is a little wild. Perhaps it's time we allowed some wilderness into our perfectly ordered galaxy." As the Council debated humanity's role in their new future, Earth had already become the center of a technological renaissance. The humans hadn't just survived first contact, they had fundamentally changed how the galaxy approached progress itself. And across the stars, countless species were learning humanity's most valuable lesson, that the greatest discoveries come not from following the path, but from daring to step off it entirely. In the end, the Empire hadn't just underestimated humanity's power, they had failed to understand that chaos, properly embraced, wasn't a weakness to be conquered, but a strength to be celebrated. The age of ordered progress was over. The era of beautiful chaos had begun.